Love, love, until I feel the breath of the Spirit flowing in me.
Hello, welcome to Spirit of Life. I'm Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Graham Watt. He's the State Member of Parliament for Burwood electorate. Welcome.
Thanks,
Yes, you were here with us last week, and it's really great to have you back again.
No problems. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah. And you've been now in Parliament for how many years?
3 years.
Oh,
So
wow.
I've been the member for Burwood for 3 years.
Yes.
It's been a great ride. I've thoroughly enjoyed what I do.
Yeah.
I was saying to somebody only a couple of weeks ago that even if I won the lotto, I think I would, I know that the next day I would probably come back to work. I might miss one day, but I'd certainly be back doing the job that I enjoy doing. It gives me great pleasure and delight to be able to do what I do, to be a servant of the community and to help people.
Yeah, you suddenly last week you shared how you were so passionate about wanting to serve the community, and I liked your saying about when you see a need, you don't walk away, you respond to that.
Yeah. It's always easy for us to walk away, but sometimes I find it's just as easy and much more fulfilling to actually turn back and help the person. If somebody falls over, I think we should do what we can to help that person. It doesn't take much effort to actually see a need and to try to help.
Yes. And there's probably some policies that you would like to bring in, or some groups of people. What group are you very passionate about particularly?
For me, I think that if we can start people off in life in a good setting, and last week I talked about, I grew up in public housing, and sport and education were two of the things that got me to progress in life, and so those are the two areas where I have great passions about making sure we can firstly set kids up on a good path in life. As a politician, what we always are striving to find the best use of resources and the best way we can invest. And some of those investments, I think that if we can invest in youth sport, and the Minister talks quite often about getting more people more active more often, but I would say if we could get those more people more active more often at a younger age, then the Health Minister wouldn't necessarily be calling for more funding for people at a later stage for health, or the Education Minister would have more people with active minds. I found when I was in school, part of my progression was to be able for sport, and I found it quite soothing to get out there and to be at peace with myself. I used to train 35 k's on a Sunday, go for a walk.
Wow.
So at 4 hours at a time you'd be out there on a Sunday training, and it's quite peaceful and gives you a lot of time for reflection when you're out there on a Sunday morning. And that for me, if we can invest more in sport, invest more in schools, and if you look at my local electorate, where as a state government we've invested heavily in both secondary and primary school, but we're also investing in the Catholic system, and I think that's fantastic that we are putting money into the Catholic system to help all of those people who are involved. Doesn't matter where you send your kid to school. I think it's fantastic that we're able to invest there, and that's where I see us doing the best work we can do.
Yeah, and it's you were speaking earlier about how you connected with God in the choir, and I was just wondering if it's when you talked about your sports, it seemed to me that you also can connect with God through nature. In a sense, you're experiencing God in nature. Would you say that's true?
Well, there is a lot of time when you're out there for 3.5, 4 hours. A lot of time for reflection and to think about your place in life and how you fit in your surrounds and where the faith plays part in that. There is a lot of time for reflection, and I think that the strength that you get from your surrounds, from your family, from your faith, that helps you in situations where, as I said last week, we've all been tested in our own ways, the way we're tested. It's not about how we're tested; it's about how we come out of that and how we deal with those trials and tribulations.
Yes, I really liked last week what you spoke about, the mentoring you got from your work, from your dad, from your coach, because I think some people have named it that our society today is kind of fatherless, but you had good father images and they corrected you, because I think sometimes psychologists are saying that youth need not only to be affirmed but to also show boundaries, because I think there was a stage in society where they were sort of pumping up youth and saying you're so fantastic, but now psychologists are saying that we need to know our boundaries too and our limitations.
We do need to know our boundaries, but as a politician there's a balance between the discipline and the support that we give. And once that comes out of kilter, then we find that the whole system will fall over. And I think that, if you invest too much in discipline and not enough in support, then you'll find that all you're doing is keeping people away from the crime, and you're not preventing the crime in the first place, or you're not helping society grow. And I think that is something we need to do, is find the right way to connect communities. And so the state government invests heavily in connecting communities and assisting community groups, whether they're cultural groups and religious groups, to actually connect with their community and stay true to themselves.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I like that statement about discipline and support, because sometimes coming from a social work background, we're very much into support, but we're not. Sometimes we forget about the discipline side, and I think that's very, very good what you're sharing. So
I think for me as a father, I've got a 12-year-old and my youngest is almost 10. You've got to have that balance. You can't just discipline somebody and then not show them compassion and show them the right way to do things. You've got to be able to say that's wrong, but you've also got to be able to say this is how we fix it.
Yes, I might have to stop you there, though. It's very interesting, and we'll get back to you. And we'll just go for a break. You're watching Spirit of Life. We're going for a break now. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. I'm Geraldine Lee, and our guest is Graham Watt. He's a Member of Parliament for the electorate of Burwood, Victoria. Welcome back.
Thanks, sir.
Graham. You were talking about the importance of support and discipline, in programs and policies and in the community. Have you got some programs that exist that you'd like to talk about, maybe in your electorate?
Well, we talk about one of the things we were elected on as a government. We were elected on a strong law and order policy, but we also know that there's many things in life that people fall off the rails. Something even as simple as mental illness. Many people have mental illness in society, and it's not always the right thing to actually lock up someone with a mental illness and say, well, we put them away and we've solved the problem. We need to invest in mental illness to make sure that we can help people through life. But even as simple as sometimes crime is through opportunity, and if we don't provide the right services, even something as simple as public transport, providing good public transport means that we'll have less of certain crimes to make sure that people need to get about. And I think that's one of the things we need to do, is we need to take a whole of a systematic approach to the whole of government services, and there's a restructure of DHS at the moment happening, such that those in public housing will also have somebody that will be able to look at their other needs, whether it's, as I said, mental health, or whether it's child assisting with children and these types of things. We'll have one person who will be able to assess the needs of our clientele, the customers, customer base, make sure that they get the assistance they need across a broad spectrum of government services.
Yeah. When you're talking about the transport, what was the need to get around. What did you mean by that?
Well, I think that sometimes, if a person needs to get from A to B, some mischievous people might find a bicycle on the side of the road and take that rather than catch a bus.
Oh, right.
If there's no bus, there's the choice of walking.
I see.
And I think that sometimes, and it's no excuse, and I don't excuse people that commit crimes, but sometimes if we provide opportunities, I even look at graffiti. Graffiti is something that I abhor, and if we can get kids to actually participate in society, then it will keep them occupied, and there's less likely that things such as graffiti will happen. So that's why I talked before about sport, and if we can provide more sport for younger people, it'll keep them occupied, and that's where it's the support, giving them something to do, and then there's the discipline once they do fall off the rails. We need to find that balance. It's, as I said before, I've got young kids and it's easy to just tell them what not to do, but sometimes you need to give them things to do and help them to be occupied and be inspired to do other things.
It's true, because when I was studying social work, I remember my lecturer was saying that about 95% of people in prison have mental illness or drug addiction or alcohol addiction. So there's only really people on the top end of crime, like that 5%. And so you're right with that. You do need to have services, like their needs need to be met.
Yes, and that's what I talked about with the whole of government, is the fact that be able to provide services, to provide assistance, to help people to keep out of the criminal justice system, and that if we can get people out of the criminal justice system and stop people from getting in, then there's less money we need to spend on the criminal justice system.
And do you have what about the arts? Because there's the education, there's sports, but there's the arts too. How do you see that also helping?
Well, not everybody. My oldest son is not a big fan of sport. He's just found a sport he does enjoy now, but he's one who much prefers art, prefers drawing. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. I mean, I'm a big fan of sport because I think that keeps the mind occupied and the body occupied and all of those things that we talked about before. But that doesn't mean that fits everybody, and I think that art can be a way to keep people's minds energised and keep them progressing, and I think there's the opportunities for that as well.
That's great. And the spirituality, where does that come in with policy, in your vision for government?
Everything that we do, I think there is that part of that aspect to it. How can we, whatever we do in politics and whatever law we introduce or whatever regulation we introduce, how does that fit with ourselves and with our faith and our beliefs? And everything I do in politics comes back to how does it sit with me and with my vision and my faith, and am I comfortable with what we're doing? And sometimes you do get tested in those boundaries. I think that as politicians we can be very pragmatic. I think that we all know where we sit, or hopefully we know where we sit and how we feel. Sometimes you need to be pragmatic to get what you need eventually. But I think that you always need to have that in the back of your mind, where your faith and where you sit. Are you comfortable with what you're doing?
Yeah. And do you find that there are policies in the local area to help with church life and spiritual life?
Oh, well, there are a number of groups or assistance and grants that are available for people of all different groups, whether they be church groups or whether sporting groups. So there is assistance that we can provide, but a lot of those things come through whether it's senior citizens groups and the like, to help people get connections. And I'm a big one for how do we bring community together, and how do we get community to connect.
On that note, we need to take a break now, but that's really interesting. You're watching The Spirit of Life. We'll be back in a few minutes. Hello, welcome back to Spirit of Life. I'm Geraldine Lee, and my guest is Graham Watt. He's the State Member of Parliament for Burwood. Welcome back.
Thanks, Geraldine.
Graham. So you were talking about faith in the community, how you connect faith. How about faith with other members of Parliament? Like, what kind of things do you all do? Do you have prayer groups sometimes with other members of Parliament?
Well, as I said before, there was obviously the vast majority of politicians took an oath. So we are all, most of us, not all of us, most of us are of faith. And we start the day with the Lord's Prayer. But there is also times during the day, I think that there's ladies that come in occasionally for prayer group. And there's a group of ladies that come in to pray for people, and occasionally that I pop in there to spend some time with them, and it's always quite peaceful, and just to take the time out to do that. But yeah, you're right. There are some of us that join in with a prayer group or a Bible study group. I've never really given it a name, but a number of us do reflect on the Word and on the Bible. Going through particular passages, and there's a number of us that join in. Not all of us are liberal, but there are a number of us that.
So do you think that the Liberal Party have more of a monopoly with God?
I certainly wouldn't say that. No, I certainly wouldn't say that. I would say that, and I did mention this before, that the vast majority of Liberals and National Party members, I must say, took an oath when we were sworn in recently, and that's important to be able to know. I can say there was only one that I know that didn't, and his personal reasons for that, but he's a man of faith himself. So it's important to most of us.
So you keep to that integrity and true to your word.
It is, and lots of people, frankly, aren't comfortable with being so open and free about their faith and how what their beliefs are. But I mean, last week I talked about going to church. One of my earliest memories was going to church and singing in an Anglican church in North Tom Price. And for me, I think about that song regularly, and it talks about, freely, freely you have received, freely, freely give.
I think I know that song.
Go in my name, and because you believe, others will know that I live. And if you need to feel comfortable within yourself to be able to say that this is something that I'm comfortable to share with people, and this is something that I am comfortable about, and not everybody is. And I know that there's one of my colleagues who is very open and honest and free with his thoughts on his faith, and he hasn't had a very good time because there are some people who don't like people that are so open and honest and free with their faith. If you could read the transcripts of people's Hansard over the last 3 years in Parliament, and I'm sure people will be able to pick out those that are quite strong in their beliefs. And it's not easy for some people because some people do have others want to attack them, and I don't think it's right, and I don't think it's something that should happen. But nonetheless, it doesn't deter me. It doesn't deter others from being open and actually being able to do good.
Does it challenge you to want to protect those people that get attacked? Or?
It does, and this is what I talked about recently, or just before. I've talked about not walking away and not turning your back on people, and seeing people that are in need, seeing people that are being
fellow politicians
that are being done wrong by, and to be turned around and say, I'm here for you, I do support you. And it's not just politicians, because right throughout society and throughout the community there are always people that are doing it tough. But I mean, I'm not the type of person that would just turn around and walk away. Even in Australian vernacular, we have this discussion or this concept of mateship, and you've got a mate, and you're there for your mates. And I think that's a very Australian term. But it's something that follows through with people of faith. You not being able to just walk away.
Stay loyal.
Not being able to walk away from somebody who's in need and need some help.
Yeah, and do you find that sometimes when policies that you don't quite agree with, that you're praying there in the background, there hoping that things might change, or do you feel that?
Well, yes, we quite often think about some of the policies that we aren't comfortable with and how we can go about to bring some change in those policies, and how we might be able to be within ourselves and accept who we are and what we've got before us. But yes, I often find myself struggling with what we have and how we make it better.
Yes, there's certainly many, there's pro-life issues, there's many, euthanasia, all those things that can be quite challenging. But it's great to know that you're there praying as a politician. Well,
there's some very, very challenging issues in state parliament, and as I say, there's always the question of how we go about improving everybody's lives and how we go about changing some of those things that we might all want to change.
Yes.
The politics is a battle of ideas, and not everybody's going to agree with you all of the time. And I certainly think that, I think I talked about it earlier about pragmatism, and sometimes you need to see the end goal and to be able to be somewhat pragmatic about how we go about to get that end goal. Yeah.
And how would you encourage other people who want to be involved in politics?
Well, for me, I'm a member of the Liberal Party, but you don't only have to be the member of the Liberal Party, but one of those things would be to join a political party. It's always easy I talked about trying to help people, but it's easy to sit on the sideline in politics. One thing would be to get involved, and the other thing would be to get involved in your community.
Fantastic.
And to do what you can to help people.
Yes, it's great that, to encourage people in the community, and it's great having you because it makes it, available to anyone to be involved. So you're a great encouragement, and we've loved having you the last 2 weeks, and maybe have you in the future. But
no problem.
God bless and to your work in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Join us next week. Goodbye, and God bless you.